Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Traptrix Yugioh deck profile for post-Duel Overload. Wanted to do an update to the Traptrix deck after the release of the April 2020 ban list. We also got a new card in the Duel Overload booster pack, which definitely does help for the overall recycle power that the Traptrix deck can do. It's a really fun deck for those of you looking to look into a type of control deck that focuses on a heavy trap lineup. This is definitely the deck for you. Plus you have a bunch of Xyz and Link options with the deck to attack your opponent into. So this deck can both be defensive and also offensive at both plays, depending on the type of scenario you're in with the deck. It's a lot of fun, and like I said, with the new support, definitely does help for sure. And wanted to wait for the latest ban list before doing an update to the deck. So now that we have it, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the monsters, I'm running 3 Traptrix Myrmelio, probably one of your best setup cards in the deck. This card's unaffected by the effect of whole normal traps, like a good amount of the Traptrix monsters. And when this card is normal summon, you can add 1 whole normal trap card from your deck to your hand. If this card is special summon, target 1 spell or trap card your opponent controls and destroy that target. So you have the option early on when you do your first normal summon with Myrmelio for the search effect for any of the whole normal traps we are running in the deck, and then also relying on the spell and trap destruction effect when you special summon it off of some of your other effects with the deck, including your Link monster or even our next Traptrix monster, which I also run 3 of, which is Traptrix Dionea. This card is unaffected by the effects of whole normal traps, just like Myrmelio. When it is normal summon, you can target 1 Traptrix monster in your graveyard and special summon that target in face-up defense position. And when this card is special summon, you can target a whole normal trap in your graveyard, set that target, but banish it during the end phase of your next turn. You can only use each of the effects of Traptrix Dionea once per turn. So with this card, you have your setup for your special summon, and then also for the resources to go into your Xyz monster, which is Traptrix Rafflesia, even setting up your Myrmelio in the graveyard for your Link play, just needing a Link 1 monster for Traptrix Sarah to go into. And then with Traptrix Dionea, just having that whole recycle trap, especially when you most of the time, depending on the hole you search with Myrmelio, you're going to go for the search and set, and then activate it on your opponent's next turn when they summon out a monster. So then you'll be able to recycle that trap again and hopefully use it again against your opponent with Traptrix Dionea's other effect when you special summon it off of another card. And for the last of the 3 ofs, I'm also running 3 Traptrix Mantis. When this card is normal summon, you can add 1 Traptrix monster from your deck to your hand. It's unaffected by the effect of whole normal traps, and once per turn, quick effect, you could target 1 set spell trap you control, return that target to the hand, then you can set 1 spell trap from your hand. So it's just more setup for different cards on the field, depending on if you have, like a full back row, and then just additional cards you want to work with. And being able to add other Traptrix monsters especially works good for the setup coming in the next turns that you can do, whether it be for Dionea or Myrmelio, or even one of the other Traptrix monsters we run in the deck for the overall plays you can do. But Traptrix Mantis definitely does help just for rearranging some of the other set cards we run on the field for a more better setup play. And for the new Traptrix, I'm running 2 Traptrix Genlesia, I believe is how you pronounce the name. I'm only running 2 of this card just for the fact that it's more of a situational card, unaffected by the effect of whole normal traps like all the other Traptrix so far. You contribute this card to set 2 whole normal traps with different names, 1 from your deck and 1 from your graveyard, but banish them when they leave the field. You can only use this effect of Traptrix Genlesia once per turn. So the reason I'm only running 2 of it is early game, if you don't have the whole normal trap already set up in your graveyard by one of your other Traptrix monsters, it really doesn't help much for what this card can do. If it searched the whole traps from the main deck and set them, it would be amazing, just for that additional +2, but it still helps for that additional search from the deck. You just have to have that other whole normal trap set up already. So at least if you open this card up early game, you can at least still go for your Link 1 play into Traptrix Sarah, but still needing, the already searched out whole normal trap for the additional searches you can do with this card is why I'm running it at 2. If you want to try 3, you can try mixing around the other numbers with, Traptrix Mantis or even one of our hand trap options, but I think 2 is a perfect number to run in the deck altogether. And then for some of the one-ofs for the Traptrix monsters, I run one Traptrix 8-Tracks and one Traptrix Nepenthes. With Nepenthes, it's unaffected by effect of whole normal traps. For a second, I thought Mantis wasn't, but I remember they're all unaffected. It's the main point of the Traptrix monsters. If you activate a whole normal trap, even during the damage step, you can add to your hand or special summon one Traptrix monster from your deck, except Traptrix Nepenthes. You can only use this effect of Nepenthes once per turn. So this is more set up as well for that search. Being searchable off of your Traptrix Mantis is the best play to go for as well. And with Traptrix 8-Tracks, you can activate whole normal trap cards from your hand. The activation of them on your side of the field cannot be negated, so you have more setup with 8-Tracks. That's why I'm running just one of each of these cards. With cards like Dionysia, which you can already have the setup for, it works a lot better, I would say, where 8-Tracks and Nepenthes are more situational plays you want to go for. And then for the last of the monsters, the only hand trap I'm running is 3 Ash Blossom. It just helps to run these as backup options to your traps, just so you can stop some of your opponent's searches. As well, the trap cards are the majority of the cards we run in the deck overall, just so we can rely on them and all the different searches and effects the Traptrix monsters can have while they're on the field. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spell, which I'm only running one of. The only spell I run is the only searchable spell in the deck, and that is Double or Nothing, with Exceed monsters being a big part of the deck. I wanted to run the one Double or Nothing. It's a pretty standard play for the Traptrix, just being able to go for your Utopia lineup, then being able to go for Double or Nothing, getting that search, and then being able to make the Link play into Penis Stag to be able to hit your opponent for piercing damage if needed with your Utopia monster, and most of the time hitting either for big damage or going for a game as well. But this is the only trap, I said trap spell that you run in the deck. The majority of the rest of the deck focusing on the traps, like I said, being the main play of the deck and being searchable with a lot of different cards also. And now moving on to the traps. For the whole normal traps, I am running 2 Floodgate Trap Hole. When your opponent summons a monster, change that monster to face down defense position. Monsters changed to face down defense position by this effect cannot change their battle position. So this can help stop your opponent and their Link plays. A lot of plays now, if they use Fusion, it doesn't hurt as much, but if your opponent were to Exceed summon, Synchro summon, or Link summon, this card would shut down that whole play, especially if they needed that one specific monster to go into that Link Synchro or Exceeds play. So Floodgate Trap Hole is very, very strong in that sense, and also being recyclable with cards like Dionea, and then also our new Traptrix Genlesia are just an added plus for this card. For the additional normal traps, just to have more numbers and consistency to go off of, I run 1 Network Trap Hole. When your opponent special summons a monster from the main deck or graveyard, banish it face down. Also 1 Bottomless Trap Hole and 1 Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. With the Bottomless, you have the banish option for the destruction, and the Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare is helpful when a monster is special summoned from this turn activates effect on your opponent's field, negate the activation, and destroy it. So with these, they're just one-ofs for the fact that they are searchable. More situational, but Floodgate Trap Hole works for a good amount of the decks you play, since your opponent usually will always summon a monster for their play. Well, these ones are, more specific, because also Bottomless has to be 1500 or more attack. Network has to be from the main deck or the graveyard, and Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare has to be in effect. But like I said, they're searchable, so you can know the situation you want to use these cards in also with the deck. And with our main Link monster being Traptrix Sarah and focusing on when trap cards are activated, I'm also running 3 Compulsory Evacuation Device. With this one, you have the plays to go for a good amount of minuses for your opponent. Depending on when they summon a monster, you can bounce it back to the extra deck potentially, because that's normally what I try to hit with Compulsory Evacuation Device. So then they just lose that monster in general. It doesn't go back to their hand for any situation. And when you activate the trap, you'll get the additional effect of Traptrix Sarah, which we'll go over when we go over the extra deck. But 3 of this card definitely does come in handy. You can't really go wrong with it, aside from the fact if your opponent destroys it before you have a chance to bounce a monster on the field. But even then, you could potentially bounce one of yours back if they don't summon a monster for you to reuse again later. And I'm not a big fan of traps that, have to activate when your opponent swings directly into you. But with this deck, with the amount of traps you're running, it can definitely help for the situation you're going for. And that's why I like to run 3 Storming Mirror Force. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, return all opponent's attack position monsters to the hand, which can be the Link monsters, especially since they can't be put in defense. But if your opponent's attacking, you can still hit a good amount of monsters. And most of the time, they won't see this card coming either. If you just set it up with, 4 other back row, and then they, take care of some of the other back row, swing with the Storm Mirror Force, and then there go all the problems of the battle phase as well. And for more options to go into your Xyz plays as well, and just easy monsters to special summon, I am running 3 the Phantom Knights of Shade Brigadine. You special summon this card in defense position as a normal monster, Warrior Dark level 4. It's not treated as a trap. If you have no traps in your graveyard, you can activate this card the turn it was set as well. So early game, if you open this card in your hand, you can just activate it right then and there, and then summon another Traptrix monster, and then either go for the Exceed play or use that one for the Link play, and then if you have an additional Traptrix monster, then for the Exceed play also. Very, very useful altogether, and just overall good, because then you can either, if you have a multiple of this card, just set it, and if you have a trap already in the graveyard, just wait till next turn or at the end of your opponent's turn to reactivate this card also. And for more protection, so your opponent doesn't hit you big for the damage, I'm running 3 Waboku. If you have Infinite Impermanence, which I know is a more difficult card for a lot of people to gain access to, you can swap out this card for that card's spot in the deck. It's just player preference there. I know Waboku's a little more budget friendly, but can still help to protect you against your opponent's effects. And once again, just like compulsory being a normal trap to activate, get the effect of Traptrix Sarah also. And one of the newer cards I'm running in the deck is Chain Hole. With this one, when your opponent activates a monster effect in response to a card or effect activation, negate that opponent's effect. Then your opponent can banish 1 card from their hand or deck with the same original name as that negated card. If they did not, you can banish 1 random card from their hand. So the additional banish just helps to minus their resources, but also your opponent's going to have a lot of responses to some of the cards you run in this deck. So having Chain Hole just as that option to get rid of your opponent's additional resources and also take care of a lot of different problems against them is an added plus with the deck for sure. And wrapping up on the traps now, I also run 2 Lost Wind, just easy, special summon effect negations and attack lowering with this card. And being able to recycle it from the graveyard just gives you that additional plus if you have that open spot in your spell and trap card zone to set this card in, then activate it again, even though it'll be banished afterwards. It's still that additional card when your opponent special summons a monster to be an extra plus. And I know normal traps are a big focus on the deck, but, there could be cards where your opponent just wipes out your whole back row, or evenly matched, you name it. So 2 Solemn Judgment just help for this last space option. If you wanted to run 1, Solemn Warning and 1 Solemn Judgment as well, you could try taking out the Lost Winds or even 2 of the Chain Hole to add a little more of the Solemn Brigade if you want to add in a 3rd Judgment and then a few additional cards like Solemn Strike or Warning. Those can be additional spots for you to take in, but I've been comfortable with 2 in the deck as a number you can go for. And that is it for the main deck. When I move on to the extra deck, I run 2 Traptrix for Felicia. You just need 2 level 4 monsters. It's unaffected by trap effects while it has Xyz material. Traptrix monsters you control except Felicia cannot be destroyed by battle or car effects. And your opponent cannot target Traptrix monsters you control except Traptrix for Felicia with car effects. And once per turn, during the other player's turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card to send 1 whole normal trap card as activated conditions met from your deck to the graveyard. And the effect of this card becomes that trap's effect while this card is activated. So with this, it's even more setup getting the trap hole card already in the graveyard for you to then use Traptrix again Alicia on the field to set up that whole trap back onto the field after you use the first effect with Felicia, just giving you more and more pluses with that card. I would say it's the best situation that pops up with the deck to use the card, which is why I like to run 2 of this, just so you always have that option available for you and to also protect your other Traptrix monsters. For the rest of the Exceeds, I also run 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 number 41 Baguska, 1 Tornado Dragon, and 1 Time Thief Redoer for the most of the generics. For the Utopia lineup, I run the 1 number 39, 1 Utopia Double, and the 1 Utopia the Lightning, just as an additional boost hit. If you didn't want to run Lightning and just focus on the piercing effect of Utopia Double with Pentestag, you could take this out and try putting in a Castel monster, Xyz as well, the Sky Blaster, just as a more generic option for the deck if you wish. And then for the Link monster, probably one of the most important extra deck monsters is Traptrix Sarah. This card definitely does make the deck. You just need 1 non-Link Traptrix monster to make it. This Link summon card is unaffected by trap effects. You can only use each effect of the following effects of Traptrix Sarah once per turn and not during the damage step. If a normal trap card is activated, you can special summon 1 Traptrix monster from your deck with a different name other than the cards you control. And if your other Traptrix monster effect is activated, you can set 1 normal whole trap directly from your deck. So the normal trap spell, not spell, I keep saying spells, but the normal traps you activate like Compulse and Waboku will trigger Traptrix Sarah, allowing you to special summon other Traptrix monsters, and when you use their effects, you'll then get the whole set up, so you'll be able to have multiple cards on the field and set up just by using one trap with Traptrix Yugioh. You definitely need to run 3 of this. It goes through pretty quickly with all the different plays. Usually at least making this card once per turn if my opponent somehow has managed to destroy the other copy I already have on the field. So like I said, you definitely need 3 of it in the deck. And then for the other Link monsters, I run 1 Asa the Earth Charmer, just an easier play to make with all the different Earth Traptrix monsters. And then if I have another extra deck monster on the field I wish to make with it, it helps. And the 1 Mrs. Radiant for the Earth power for all the different Traptrix monsters as well. And the 1 Penistag is for the play with number 39 Utopia to hit for the big damage also. And as for some of the easy plays, there's not too many combos to do with the deck. Being a more controlled deck, the whole setup is just basically to have your Traptrix Sarah, which will still need to be in the extra monster zone with Master Rule. But what I also think is cool, you can at least now set up Traptrix Rafflesia on the field with your Xyz setup if you use your Dionea and your Myrmelio to at least go for the play of keeping Rafflesia in the main monster zone. I know Traptrix Sarah just needs a non-link Traptrix monster to make her, but I usually don't like using the Rafflesia for the play, which would take up the spot in the extra monster zone. So at least now being able to use it in the main monster zone adds as an added plus, so then I can go and summon another Traptrix monster and then use that monster to go into Traptrix Sarah in the extra monster zone still. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.